Hi, my name is Brian Davis with Chef Brian's Kitchen, and today we're making puff pastry coins. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with our puff pastry. This is a store-bought pastry that I bought because it's a lot easier to work with than making your own. Puff pastry is a very difficult dough. It takes a long time to make, and it takes knowing how to do it to make it right. So whenever I work with puff pastry, generally I use store-bought pastry. One thing you want to remember when working with puff pastry is you want to keep it cold. The thing that makes puff pastry work is its layers of butter and flour. The reason it puffs, you keep the butter cold. As it hits the oven, the moisture from the butter releases, which kind of lifts the layers of butter and flour, which creates the rise. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our dough. We're just going to put a little bit of flour on our work surface and put our puff pastry down on the flour, and then we're going to sprinkle a little bit over top. You don't want to use a lot of flour, but you want to use enough to where it allows you to work with it and roll. If you're rolling it out and you see that it's not moving, that it's sticking to the table, then you don't have enough flour. Lift it up and add a little bit more flour. So what we're going to do, we're just going to roll this out into, we don't want it too thin. We want it maybe about a 1/16 inch thick. So, we're just going to roll it out to a nice rectangle. And what I like about these French-style rolling pins is they're kind of angled at either end. So if you need to straighten it out, you can just put a little more pressure on one end to keep a nice, straight dough. So that's basically what we're going to do with our dough. That's about all we need. So we're going to take it here, and now what we're going to do with these puff pastry coins is we're going to roll them. So we want to get all this flour off. That's why we have two different pastry brushes. I'm going to use one pastry brush to brush the flour off, and I'm going to use the other pastry brush to put the mustard on. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the flour, take the pastry brush, and brush the excess flour off the dough. Okay, you don't need to put any heavy pressure on it. Just lightly brush it to remove the excess flour. Okay, kind of brush around the edges of it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so we're going to flip our dough over and we're going to brush all the flour off the other side. Now making these is very simple. We're going to brush it with the Dijon mustard. We're going to sprinkle it with the diced ham, the two types of cheese. We're going to roll it, slice it, and bake it. So they're very simple. It's a great vessel for flavor. If you don't want to use ham and cheese, you could use turkey and cheese. You could use vegetables. You could use a number of fillings for this. Okay, so we've got it brushed off. So now we're going to take our pastry brush, put it in our mustard, and we're going to leave about an inch border at the top. We're going to need that to seal the dough. Okay, so we're going to brush the dough with the Dijon mustard. Okay, so we've got our pastry brushed with the mustard. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our diced ham and we're just going to sprinkle it over the dough. Now then, you really don't need to use a lot of it because as you'll see when we get to the next step of rolling it, it's going to roll. All the fillings are going to kind of be rolled up inside. So you're going to have multiple layers of fillings, as you go through when we get to the end product. So we're going to take our Parmesan cheese and just kind of sprinkle a little bit of shredded Parmesan cheese on it. And we're going to take our diced Swiss cheese and just kind of sprinkle our diced Swiss cheese on top of that. And when you get these big chunks of clumps of cheese, just kind of break them up. Just make it, it'll just make the rolling a little bit easier. Okay, so now we've got our filling together. So now what we're going to do is we're going to roll it. Okay, and the way we're going to roll it, we want to try and keep this fairly tight as we're going through. So we're going to take it and we're going to lift the bottom edge and we're going to fold it over. Okay. Now keep an eye on your flour. That's why I use two pastry brushes. If you see flour when you lift up the as you roll this up, take the dry pastry brush and, wipe it off. But what we're going to do is we're going to start from the left end, and we're just going to start folding the dough over and rolling it. Okay? Then we're going to work into the middle, and we're just going to work all the way across. Okay, this is basically where you're going to start your tight roll. Okay, and you kind of want to make a tight roll because when we slice it, you kind of want the pinwheel layers to stick together. And if you've got a lot of space and a gap between it, it's going to be hard for them to stick together. So once we get it about halfway up, then we'll be able to take it and we're just going to roll it all the way up. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of this mustard and we're going to put it on the edge. The reason I didn't brush this before is if I needed to unroll it, I'd be able to unroll it. If I brush this mustard all the way up, once the mustard is attached to it, it's not going to unroll. Okay? So this just helps to keep a smooth seam for the finished product. So we're going to brush it with the mustard, and then basically what we're going to do is we're just going to finish rolling it out. Okay? And there we go. We have our pastry roll. And what we're going to do, we're going to put this in the refrigerator. And when we come back in the next segment, I'm going to show you how to slice it and bake it.